Welcome back to the channel. Sit well, relax small, and let this story enter gently. She grew up in the same house with her sister, shared the same mat, ate from the same pot. They laughed together, fought like children do, then made peace before night came. She never thought blood could turn strange. Love was simple to her. When her fiancé came, he came with smiles and calm words. He greeted the family well. He looked at her like she was the only person in the room. Even her sister teased her, calling her lucky, calling her blessed. Life felt steady then. The wedding plans started quietly. Nothing loud. Just small talks, small savings, hope tucked inside a wooden box. She trusted everyone. That was her soft spot. When she went to the city to work for a short time, she left her fiancé behind. She left him with her family. She believed love waited. Things changed slowly, like rain that starts as mist. Her sister began wearing better clothes. Her sister started speaking with confidence that did not belong to her before. When she came home one evening without notice, she met silence. The house felt cold though the sun was still high. Her sister would not meet her eyes. Her fiancé stood stiff, like someone caught stealing water from a neighbor's well. The truth fell without warning. No long explanation. No shame. Her sister was getting married. Not just married. Married to the man she loved. The date was close. The family agreed. They said it was fate. They said things happen. They asked her to understand. Understanding refused to come. She cried until her chest hurt. Still, nobody moved. On the wedding day, she was not a guest. She was given chores. Cook this. Clean that. Carry water. Smile less. Talk less. She became the shadow in her own home. Her sister wore white. Her fiancé wore joy. She wore pain and silence. Days turned into weeks. Her name stopped being called. They called her girl. They called her maid. She slept near the kitchen. Ate leftovers when there were any. Her sister enjoyed power softly, like someone tasting sugar alone. She sent her on errands. She corrected her tone. She reminded her of her place. But something inside her did not die. It stayed quiet. It watched. It waited. And somewhere, unseen, life was preparing a turn nobody expected. Morning came early in that house, always before her eyes were ready. She woke to the sound of her sister's voice, sharp but sweet, calling her to fetch water. The sun was barely awake, yet her day had already started running. She tied her wrapper tight, picked up the buckets, and walked to the tap with slow steps. People greeted her on the way. Some greeted with pity. Some greeted with curiosity. She answered none with words. Her silence had become her shield. Back home, chores lined up like soldiers. Sweep the yard. Wash clothes. Prepare breakfast. Her former fiancé barely looked at her. When their eyes met by mistake, his face shifted away fast, like a child avoiding punishment. That hurt more than insults. At least insults admit guilt. Her sister had changed. Not loudly, but clearly. Power sat on her shoulders like new cloth. She spoke with authority now. She corrected her posture. She complained about small things. Salt too much. Floor not clean. Food cold. Each word landed softly, yet heavy. The family watched and said nothing. Silence had become the house rule. At night, when everyone slept, she sat alone by the kitchen door. She talked to herself in whispers. She reminded herself of who she used to be. She laughed softly at old memories, just to feel human again. Some nights she cried. Other nights she just stared into darkness, waiting for sleep to carry her away. One afternoon, something unusual happened. A visitor arrived. A woman from the city, well-spoken, neat, with calm eyes. She greeted everyone politely. She said she was looking for someone. When asked who, She mentioned her name. Her real name. The one nobody used anymore. Surprise spread like heat. Her sister looked confused. Her husband frowned. She stepped forward slowly, unsure. The visitor smiled gently and said she had been searching for her for months. She spoke of a small business training they once discussed during her short stay in the city. She said an opportunity had opened. Support. Learning. Growth. A chance to start again. The room felt tight. Her sister laughed it off, saying she was busy, saying the house needed her. The visitor looked around, observing the tired eyes, the worn clothes, the quiet strength. She nodded once, like someone who already understood. Before leaving, the visitor slipped a paper into her hand. An address. A time. Tomorrow morning. That night, sleep avoided her. Her heart beat fast, not from fear, but from a feeling she almost forgot. Hope. And hope, once awake, is hard to silence. Morning did not wait for permission. It arrived with light and questions. She woke before anyone else, her heart beating like it had somewhere to go. The paper was still in her wrapper, folded neatly, safe like a secret. As she swept the yard, her sister watched from the doorway. The look was not loud, but it carried weight. When she asked to step out later that day, the house paused. Her sister asked where she was going. The tone was sweet, yet sharp at the edges. She answered calmly, saying she needed to see someone. No details. No apology. That alone felt like rebellion. Her sister laughed and said the house would suffer in her absence. Food would not cook itself. Clothes would not wash themselves. She listened quietly, then nodded. She did not argue. She did not beg. She simply said she would return before evening. That afternoon, she wore her cleanest dress. It was old, but neat. She tied her hair carefully. As she walked out, nobody followed her. Nobody stopped her. Yet she felt watched. The address led her to a small center in the city. Nothing fancy. Just people, learning, sharing ideas, writing things down. The woman from before welcomed her warmly. No questions about her clothes. No pity in her eyes. Only respect. She was introduced to others like her. Women with stories heavy enough to bend the spine, yet smiles strong enough to hold them upright. They talked about skills. Small businesses. Saving little by little. Standing on your own feet. Each word felt like water on dry land. She listened more than she spoke. When she spoke, her voice shook at first, then steadied. By evening, something inside her had shifted. Not loudly. Just enough. When she returned home, her sister was waiting. Arms crossed. Food untouched. She asked why she was late. She answered simply. She went to learn. That word sparked fire. Learn what? For what? Who sent you? She stood still and listened. When the shouting slowed, she spoke again, softly. She said she would continue going. The house reacted badly. Her sister complained to her husband. He avoided the matter like a stone in his shoe. The family murmured. Rules were mentioned. Gratitude was questioned. Still, she did not retreat. Days passed. She kept going. Each visit added weight to her confidence. Each return home added tension. She was still a maid, still overlooked, but something had changed. Her back was straighter. Her eyes no longer dropped easily. At night, as she lay near the kitchen, she smiled to herself. The waiting season was ending. The days grew longer, but she no longer felt trapped in the same rhythm. Every step toward the center gave her small victories. She learned to count profits, to plan purchases, to speak with confidence. Each lesson was a brick in a wall she built for herself, a wall that no one in her house could touch. Her sister noticed. The sharp glances began first, then subtle remarks. "Do you think this will help you?" she asked one morning, voice laced with disbelief. She answered quietly, "It will help me stand." No anger, only calm. Her sister's lips pressed together, a small crack in her proud posture. At home, she worked as usual. Cooked, cleaned, carried water. But something had shifted. She walked straighter, spoke softer but firmer. Even the husband, her former fiancé, noticed. Not openly. Not with words. But the way he paused when she entered a room, the way he avoided her gaze at times, told her all she needed to know. One afternoon, while cleaning the living room, she overheard a conversation. Her sister was speaking on the phone, voice low but urgent. "I don't understand," she said. "She's changing. People are noticing. I can't have this in the house. She's supposed to be small." The word small struck like a stone, yet it gave her courage. They wanted her small. She would not allow it. That evening, she went to the center with renewed energy. The women there noticed her progress. One older woman said, "You carry yourself differently now. That's strength, don't lose it." She smiled quietly, holding the compliment close like a treasure. Back home, the tension grew. Her sister's anger was quieter, more dangerous. Commands came with extra weight. Every task carried a reminder, she was still the maid. Still beneath. Still nothing. Yet she no longer let it break her. One day, a chance came. The woman who had brought her to the center offered her a small loan, enough to start selling. She could buy goods, sell them, and earn her own money. She hesitated for only a moment. Then she took it, knowing this was her first step toward freedom. That night, as she prepared her small items for selling, she looked at her reflection in a water basin. Tired eyes. Dirty hands. Yet something new shone, hope. Determination. A quiet fire that no one in her house could extinguish. Her sister might have the house. She might have her fiancé. But she had something more valuable, herself. And life, she knew, had a way of balancing scales, if one waited patiently. The morning sun spilled gold across the yard, but she hardly noticed. Her mind was busy with plans. Small things first. Buy this, sell that. Every coin mattered. Every customer counted. She stepped outside with her small basket, walking through the dusty streets of her town, offering goods with a quiet smile. People responded. Some bought, some smiled, some nodded with respect. Slowly, her presence began to mean something beyond the house she was bound to. Her sister noticed immediately. "You are always gone," she complained one afternoon, voice tight. "The house is left to me." She tried to argue, but the woman only smiled politely and said, "I'm learning. This helps the house too." That answer, calm and clever, was like a blade hidden in silk. Her sister's eyes narrowed, but no words came. At the market, she met others who had stories like hers. Women who were overlooked, dismissed, or betrayed. They shared tips, small tricks of business, encouragements tucked in laughter. Every word built her confidence. Every coin she earned reminded her she was more than the maid she had been told to be. One evening, she returned home carrying a heavier basket than usual. She entered the compound quietly. Her sister noticed first, and the look she gave was dangerous. "Where did you get all this?" she demanded. Calmly, she replied, "From work. I earned it." The word earned stung like a sudden rain. Her sister turned away, pretending to be busy, but she could not hide her worry. Her former fiancé noticed too. The men she once loved, now her sister's husband, began speaking less sharply to her. Small gestures, slight attention. Eyes lingering for half a second too long. It made her pulse quicken, not with old feelings, but with the realization that respect could not be bought with stolen love. It had to be earned. And she was earning it, quietly but surely. That night, she sat near the kitchen, counting coins in the dim light. She smiled softly. The fear, the shame, the sorrow, all of it had not disappeared, but it had a new shape now. It was strength disguised as patience. She had learned the hardest lesson of all: life may take what you love, but it cannot take what you build for yourself. Her sister may have had the wedding, the house, and the borrowed joy of a mun, but she had something bigger now. A spark that would grow into fire, a path that no one could block. And somewhere deep, she knew the turn in her story was close. The next morning, she woke before anyone else, her body tired but her mind awake with plans. Today, she would take her small business further. She packed her basket, tied her hair neatly, and stepped into the streets with quiet determination. Each step was a claim on her own life, a wordless statement that she was no longer only a shadow in her home. Her sister noticed immediately. "Always gone," she said, voice tight with irritation. "Who runs this house when you are away?" She answered softly, "I do what I must. This will help us all." No anger, just truth. That silence, steady and firm, made her sister frown. There was no fight today, but tension lay thick like the dust on the road. At the market, the woman met a young man who ran a small stall. He was clever, kind, and observant. He watched how she handled her goods, how she spoke to customers, how she carried herself. He smiled once when she sold a basket of fruits, and it made her chest lift just a little. Nothing more than acknowledgement, but for the first time in a long while, she felt seen outside the walls of her house. Days turned into weeks. Coins collected. Confidence grew. She could see it in her reflection, in the way she held her head, in the way villagers now greeted her politely. Her sister's whispers started circulating among neighbors. "She thinks she is someone now." That alone amused her. She had always been someone. Only now, others were starting to notice. At home, the tension thickened. Her sister gave orders sharper than ever. Her husband remained quiet, unsettled by her quiet rise. Yet she did not yield. She carried water, swept the yard, cooked meals, yet her hands trembled less, her steps were lighter, her eyes brighter. She had found a rhythm. Not of submission, but of survival and growth. One evening, as she counted her earnings by the dim kitchen light, her sister entered. "This cannot continue," she hissed. "People are talking." She looked up calmly. "Let them talk. They will see the truth one day." Her sister's face hardened, but she knew no words could cut the resolve that had grown. Outside, the moon hung quietly, watching as the smallest of rebellions began to bloom into strength. Weeks passed, but the house remained the same. Her sister still wore the white dress of power at home, her husband still smiled at her with borrowed affection, yet the woman she once was, small and quiet, had returned with a new shape. Every coin she earned, every customer she served, added weight to her confidence. She walked taller now, even while carrying water or sweeping the yard. The house could still call her girl, maid, shadow, but she knew she was more. One afternoon, news came from the market. A small vendor whispered, "You are doing well. People are noticing." The words made her heart flutter with quiet satisfaction. She smiled to herself, feeling pride rise softly. It was not loud. It was not boastful. It was steady, like the slow growth of a tree from seed. Her sister noticed more openly now. Small digs at her confidence turned sharper. "Who do you think you are?" she snapped one morning as the woman returned home from the market. Calmly, she answered, "I am someone who earns her place." The words were simple, yet they cut deeper than any shouting. Her sister's jaw tightened. She had underestimated the fire that could grow quietly in patience and work. Her former fiancé lingered in the house differently too. Noticing her strength, seeing how others greeted her, how her back no longer bent in shame, he could not hide the flicker of respect he felt. She watched, carefully, without emotion. Respect had to be earned, and now she saw it reflected in eyes that had once ignored her completely. One evening, as she prepared her small goods for sale, a woman from the city arrived again. She brought news of a larger opportunity, a chance to sell outside the village, to grow her small business even further. She handed her a small bag of supplies and smiled. "You are ready for this," she said. Those words, simple but true, lifted something heavy from her chest. That night, she returned home with more than just goods. She returned with quiet triumph. Her sister glared, her husband looked away, but she did not flinch. She placed the goods carefully, cleaned the floor, and sat by the kitchen door, counting her coins with a steady hand. The small victories were no longer whispers, they were beginning to roar softly in the corners of her life. Morning came with birdsong, but she barely noticed. Her mind was busy planning the next steps. The bag of supplies the woman from the city had given her was heavy with promise. Each item a chance to grow, each coin she would earn a reminder that she was no longer bound by the smallness of her old life. At the market, she carried herself differently now. Villagers greeted her with smiles, some whispered admiration, others barely hid curiosity. She sold quickly, efficiently, and politely. A few customers returned, not just for the goods, but for the way she moved through the world, calm, steady, unbroken. Her confidence rippled softly, unseen by some, undeniable to those who watched closely. Her sister grew restless. Commands came sharper, words sharper, eyes sharper. "Do not get ahead of yourself," she hissed one afternoon when the woman returned home. Calmly, she replied, "I am only moving forward. Nothing more." That silence, steady and firm, made her sister stumble in ways words could not fix. Her husband, the man she once loved, tried to intervene, but the weight of quiet power she carried left him hesitant. One evening, a neighbor approached. "I see what you are doing," she said softly. "Do not stop. You have grown strong." Those words were small, but they carried the force of a river under calm skies. She nodded quietly, holding the encouragement close. Strength, she realized, could be quiet. It could be unseen. But it could also shift worlds. Back home, chores were still hers. Carrying water, cooking, cleaning. Yet each act felt different. No longer punishment. No longer chains. They were proof of patience, of endurance, of the life she was quietly building for herself. Her sister may have had the wedding, the house, the man, but she had something more lasting, self-worth. That night, by the dim kitchen light, she counted coins. Each coin was a story. Each story was proof. Proof that she could rise without hurting anyone, that she could rebuild without breaking. She smiled softly. The road ahead was still long, but for the first time, she did not feel small. Something had shifted. The balance of the house, the family, even the eyes that once ignored her, all were tilting. And soon, very soon, everyone would notice. The days turned warmer, and with each sunrise, she moved through the village with more confidence. Her small business had grown, and the coins in her hand no longer felt like tiny victories, they felt like proof of her own strength. Every customer she greeted, every product she sold, was a step away from the shadow she once lived in. Her sister noticed, finally. The sharp words were no longer enough. Threats fell flat. "You are becoming bold," she said one evening, voice tight. The woman only smiled calmly, as if the observation had no power to sway her. Her silence carried more weight than any argument, and that unsettled the sister more than anything else ever could. Even the husband, the man she once loved, began to see her differently. He no longer avoided her glance entirely, and sometimes, just sometimes, he hesitated before speaking. Respect, she realized, could not be faked. It could not be borrowed. It had to be earned, and she had earned it, quietly, steadily, without fanfare or anger. One afternoon, the woman returned to the city for a meeting with the mentor who had helped her start this journey. The mentor praised her work, her discipline, her calm strength. "You are ready," she said. "Ready to take the next step." She nodded quietly, a small spark of excitement lighting her eyes. She knew this next step could change everything. When she returned home, the house felt different. Her sister's anger simmered beneath polite words. Her husband glanced at her with cautious curiosity. And she, carrying new supplies and new hope, stepped inside with her head held high. The chores still awaited her, but they no longer felt like chains. They were now the stage on which she had proven her strength, her patience, her resolve. That night, she lay on her small mat near the kitchen, listening to the house breathing around her. Her sister slept heavily, proud in borrowed joy. Her husband slept, restless in quiet uncertainty. And she, though tired, felt calm. Tomorrow, the final move would come. The story that had begun with betrayal was about to meet the strength it had underestimated. The morning arrived calm, yet heavy with possibility. She woke early, tying her hair neatly, brushing dust from her dress, preparing for the day she had waited for in silence for months. Today, everything would change. The small coins, the quiet business, the patience, it all led here. She walked through the compound with steady steps. Her sister's eyes followed her, sharp and full of suspicion. The husband's glance lingered too long, uncertain and uneasy. She did not falter. Every step was a statement. She was no longer the shadow in the house, no longer the maid, no longer the girl to be overlooked. She had built herself silently, and now her presence could not be ignored. At the market, she sold her goods with ease, her confidence evident in every word, every smile. Customers greeted her warmly. Neighbors whispered respect. Even those who had doubted her watched, some hiding surprise behind polite faces. Strength does not always roar. Sometimes it arrives quietly, like dawn, and it is impossible to ignore once it has come. Back home, her sister confronted her finally. "Enough of this," she snapped, voice tight. "You think you can just rise above?" She answered calmly, "I am not rising above anyone. I am rising to myself." The words were simple, but they carried the weight of months of patience, work, and quiet determination. Her sister's mouth opened, but no words came. She could not fight what she could not touch. Her former fiancé looked on, helpless. The man who once held her heart, now her sister's husband, could not deny the transformation. Respect glimmered in his eyes, faint but undeniable. He had tried to claim her past, but her present, and her future, was entirely hers. That evening, she sat by the kitchen door, counting the coins she had earned that day. The house was quiet. Her sister's power now seemed fragile. Her husband's borrowed authority felt empty. And she, tired but calm, smiled softly. She had risen from betrayal and pain not with anger, but with patience and quiet strength. The maid, the overlooked girl, had become the woman who could not be ignored. Life had shifted. The scales were balanced, and finally, she stood free, not through force, but through the strength she had quietly nurtured all along. And everyone in the house, even those who thought themselves powerful, understood that she had won without losing her dignity.